Me Grimlock tired of search. Me Grimlock want to go home.
Friend find, look behind.
Me Grimlock say what is that annoying sound?
You going wrong way, you fool I say.
Me Grimlock no fool. Me Grimlock king. Me Grimlock kill annoying insect. Me Grimlock crush him. Me Grimlock don't feel too good.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers the Movie Studio Series Core Class Autobot Wheelie. Now as we take a look here at the packaging, as always we get a wicked image of the character at the top, that awesome Transformers the Movie logo at the base, a close-up image there of the artwork, as well as some product shots here at the back, and a big close-up shot of undeniably the most annoying character to grace the 1986 the movie. Now personally I'm actually really glad that we've got this figure. For those of you who recall, the last time we saw him in the main line, he was packaged in with Grimlock, and let's all be real, this figure was absolutely diabolical. I have no idea as to why they included him. He couldn't pose, he couldn't transform, and he was pretty pointless. I would have much rather had they given Grimlock his sword, but what I will say is when in comparison to this guy, it is painted a lot better. I really do like this almost lighter shade of pink that we have here for the arms, whereas sadly that's completely absent for our new core class version. But setting that guy here off to the side, overall for a legend scaled figure, this is actually really nicely done, and it's probably one of the better wheelies that we've seen released. Now here for the head sculpt, I think the detailing is really impressive. He looks just as annoying as he did on screen. I really love the chest. The way this comes together looks super animation accurate, but I do wish we could have seen more of this paint detailing on the shoulders and on the forearms just to spruce it up, as the orange plastic does look a little bland and boring. Now considering he is kind of in that legend scale, I don't think the forearms look the greatest, especially how the wheels are just kind of sticking out to the side. We do get some nice metallic looking fists, as well as his singular slingshot accessory, which is what you would expect this guy to come with. Very nicely sculpted surprisingly, and actually looks so much better when in comparison to the previous version. As we come down here to the legs, the grey looks nice, as so does the foot design, but as we come around here to the back, Wheelie has a massive butt. Now I don't know whether or not this guy's been working out in the gym and really trying to get this thick, but this thing is enormous. Initially when we saw some of the official product shots, I actually thought this was mistransformed, but sadly not. It is pinned onto place and there is no way to store this at all, and considering that due to how he transforms for bot mode there is a massive hollow cavity in the torso, I really do wish they could have found a way to have flipped this so that it could have been pushed into the torso for robot mode. But I guess once again for core class they can only go so far for the engineering. We do get some nice detail for this undersection however, and even the back of the head has been sculpted pretty nicely. Now articulation wise, we do get a ball joint at the head which can rotate the full 360. We can also use the transformation joint to hinge this section back, ball joints at the shoulders which can rotate as well as hinge out to the side, full rotation here at the elbow, sadly nothing at the wrist nor at the waist due to the way he transforms, but the legs can kick all the way forwards, so you can definitely get him smacking a shotgun in the face. They can also kick back roughly to that far before his massive bunda does get in the way. They can also kick out to the sides, a ball joint here at the knee which can bend to 90, and sadly no form of angle pivot, although you can hinge the toe back and forth due to transformation, which does help the look if you decide to pose him alongside Grimlock. So definitely a nice version of the character, and certainly a significant upgrade when in comparison to this pretty rubbish version that we saw with that leader class figure. Now here for some Wheelie comparisons, we have the original Studio Series version on the left and the version that we saw released as part of the DNA Design Grimlock upgrade kit. Now to compare these guys is slightly unfair considering that DNA Design didn't have a specific budget to fit this guy into, and considering he came in a pack of which I believe was worth about 50 quid, there's really no way to tell just how much money it would have cost for them to have tooled this guy. But in terms of robot mode, I do have to be honest and say the DNA Design version does look slightly better, not only in terms of the way he's designed, but paint wise. He looks so much nicer paint wise when in comparison to the Studio Series offering, as he does have some of those pink highlights here for the forearms. But still, this is definitely not a bad figure by any stretch of the imagination, and definitely destroys this version. Here he is is alongside the Studio Series 86 Hot Rod and Cup, and to go back to my earlier point, this is where I really think Core Class in the Studio Series line shines, as we probably wouldn't have seen this guy had that scale point not existed. I really do like how he pairs alongside some of these deluxe figures, and here we have him next to the 86 Sharkticons, which actually create for a super cool diorama. You can definitely have this guy slinging that shot in the face of one of these Sharkticons before it does get completely trampled on by the Dinobots. Here he is alongside the Studio Series Core Class Exosuit, just so you can see how these two pair with one another. And finally, here we have him alongside some of those Studio Series Dinobots, and you may be able to tell, but Grimlock appears to be channeling some of my inner energy as to what I think about Wheelie in regards to a character. But for those wondering as to whether or not you can actually stick this guy on the back of Grimlock, sadly you kind of can't. Despite him still having the tabs, the slots here on the side of the legs, which are only there due to the way the feet peg in, are just way too small. As you can see, they will not peg in there, so unless you balance him perfectly, and considering he's slightly thicker, it's going to be a little difficult to do so, then you're not really going to be able to pull off the same look that you could with that mini static figure. But I guess it doesn't look too bad, and if you spent a bit more time, I imagine you could wrap the legs around and create for something which looks pretty cool. And now for transformation. To begin with, you are going to want to take the slingshot out and just set it here off to the side. The elbows will then click into a slot on the back of the shoulder, so they'll just snap into place. Do the same here for this side. Take the feet, fold these sections down. What we can then do is come around here to the back, pull open the cockpit slightly, and then take this front chest piece, detach it, as all of this will fold in upon itself, and then you can just collapse that section down. Now what you'll want to do is rotate here at the knee joint on these ball joints, and as you guys can see, there is a tab and slot that will just snap together, and there are also some tabs here at the top that will slide into these slots. So just hinge him over, snap him there into place, take the butt kibble, hinge this section down, and then basically just hinge the arms around here to the back, and there's a tiny slot that will peg here into this tab. And for some finishing touches, if we flip him to the underside, there's also a flight stand adapter which we can port the slingshot into, and there you have a Wheelie fully transformed up into his pretty cool looking Cybertronian vehicle mode. Now it does have its issues, most noticeably would be how the hands are just kind of sticking out here to the back, but other than that, this is a really cool looking vehicle mode, and I love the shade of pink / orange they've used for this whole section. That looks great. He does have proper pinned on wheels here at the front, whereas I believe these ones are mushroom pegs, but definitely a pretty neat looking vehicle mode. There's not too much to discuss as far as this goes. Sadly, these pegs don't tend to actually stay that well together. As you can see, as I do push them in, they do kind of spring back out, as the plastic used is a little rubbery and flexible for the forearms, but it looks good enough. The Autobot logo, some nice blue here for the cockpit, and if you wanted to, you can actually open this section here up. Do reveal that Wheelie does have his head on show, so that can create for a pretty funky look, but definitely he can roll along the ground as you would expect from the character. And for a comparison, in this mode we have the Studio Series version alongside the DNA design release. Now as far as this goes, I think the Studio Series one wins hands down, despite this being slightly more complex and involved. I just think the alt mode looks a little bit like a crumpled mess, so I guess when you factor everything in, especially price point, the Studio Series is probably the best option to pick up. And you also have to bear in mind that this didn't actually have proper working wheels, whereas this guy can roll pretty freely. And finally, for comparisons, here we have him alongside a Sharkticon, which actually looks pretty massive here in the vehicle mode comparison. And so, some final thoughts for this Transformers the Movie Studio Series Core Class Wheelie. Overall, it's a pretty decent figure, with the exception of the butt kibble. The robot mode doesn't look too bad. It has been slightly compromised, mainly down to the price point. They are very confined to a specific budget with these figures, but for roughly $10 to $12, this is definitely a decent entry, leaps and bounds better when in comparison to the previous Wheelie that we saw originally packaged in with that Studio Series Grimlock. And from what I can see online, it does appear to be one of the better mainline Wheelies that we've seen in recent years. Articulation is decent. I maybe would have liked to have seen a waist joint, but due to how he transforms, I imagine that may have been impossible. Transformation, very simplistic yet incredibly effective. I think the alt mode looks pretty nicely done, with the exception of the way the fists stick out at the back. So if you're a fan of the 86 movie and you want to collect all of the characters from that film and weren't too keen on the Wheelie that we originally saw with Grimlock, then I think this is going to be a pretty nice pickup, and definitely quite an affordable one at that. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you guys plan on adding this character to the collection, despite how annoying he was in the movie, or will you be giving him a miss in favour of the version that we saw released by DNA Design? As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.